Kevalam Baba, Nam Kevalam Baba, Nam Kevalam Baba, Nam Kevalam.
Namaskar, everybody, and welcome. Welcome to a meditation session on one of the koshas. I hope everybody's doing well and you're in the mood for a reflection and a meditation. I'm just going to bring up something here. All right. So today then we're going to look at another kosha. We are going through the koshas one by one, the koshas, the layers of the mind. And today we are graduating to another kosha called the Vijnana Maya kosha. Literally it means the layer of, let's say, deep knowledge, deep understanding, deep insight. It's a nice place to be because when we are here, we're able to really understand reality at its deepest expression. I put another word there, which is viveka. And viveka is one of the attributes of this kosha. Viveka means discernment. We all need, as human beings, a way to understand the world. It's a very mystifying universe that we're in, a very mystifying life. And with Vivek, then, with this ability of discernment, we're able to sort of peel away the layers and understand what life is all about, or to the best of our capacity, and what our place in life is. Obviously, this is important when it comes to decision making, right? I mean, our lives are based on those decisions. The decisions we make right now in the present moment will determine our future. So we need to bring, Vivek, the capacity of discernment to our decisions. Now, one way we can do that is with a value system. I was actually watching a news program from the UK yesterday about a guy. It's quite big news in the UK right now. It's a guy who jumped into the River Thames to save somebody who was drowning. he saved her, but he died in the process. So he's being, obviously lauded as a national hero, but they've been looking into this guy's life, and they've seen that in the past he's also done similar heroic actions. And his friend was saying in an interview that this is his principle. His principle is when you see somebody in trouble, you help. It's very noble. So then his vivek, his discernment about life, taught him that it's not just about me, but I have a responsibility for all of those around me. So then I guess his value is, or his principle is, that we're in this together and we need to support each other. And that principle determined how he acted in life. Another way that we can guide our decision making is with our spirituality. There's another word in the spiritual dictionary, which is dharma. And dharma is basically a fundamental truth, not a relative truth. So a fundamental truth is a truth that never changes. It's something essential. It's something very basic. So a fundamental truth could be, well, I am an expression of a universal consciousness, and that universal consciousness is interacting with the world through me. So if one has that as a fundamental truth, then for oneself, then obviously one is going to interact with the world in a very positive and noble way. A lot of yogis, they meditate in cemeteries, because the cemetery is a place to really understand the fundamental truth that everything changes, everything is going to die. In fact, I used to do this myself. Well, I still do when I have the opportunity, go to the cemetery. And one time in India, I went to a cremation ground and I asked if I could meditate, and the guy said, sure. So I sat there meditating, and I had the smell of burning flesh coming into my nostrils. It was a very surreal meditation. Actually, it was quite a transcendent meditation, because I was smelling the aroma of impermanence. The body is going to die, right? That is a fundamental truth. So then the person who is spiritual understands that fact very clearly and orients life in such a way that one is not clinging to that which is impermanent. Rather, one is nourishing that which is permanent. One of my students, some years back now, she came to me in tears because she couldn't compete with the other students in the class who were from fairly wealthy backgrounds, and they were wearing designer clothing. and she couldn't afford designer clothing, and so she was very distraught. And so we went through this whole process, of talking about this very issue of impermanence, and who cares whether one can wear designer clothing or not. One can still wear clothing that makes one feel happy, clothing that can be an expression of one's own artistic joy, right? I mean, I think the fashion industry, yes, it promotes consumerism, but also it promotes art. And so one can dress in such a way that one is an artistic expression. And so slowly she was able to understand that she shouldn't tie herself to the impermanence of the superficiality of how one looks. That is going to change. And so get used to it and nourish something that's much deeper. So then one who is following Dharma, one who is following Vivek, is trying to find out what's the hub. As you have like the hub that's on the inside of the wheel, and the wheel is turning, and the tire is having contact with the road. So that's our contact, if you will, with the life of every day. and we have to be pragmatic. But at the same time, we have to understand, what is my hub? Where is my hub? Where is my core? How can I find my core, and how can I nourish my core? So this then is the value of Vivek. It helps us understand what is real and what is not real, what is permanent, what is impermanent. And one responds accordingly by building upon that which is permanent, that is to say, one's deeper consciousness. Something that is changing all the time is thought. And we certainly need to bring the capability of discernment to thought. Thoughts are happening all the time, and we need to figure out how we deal with these thoughts. Now, thoughts, clearly, I'm assuming we've all experienced that they are not always bringing truth. Thoughts are simply representations of reality. They're not reality itself, right? I mean, if somebody's asking, where's the moon, and you point to the moon, the finger is not the moon. The finger is just a representation of where the moon is. I was thinking about this on Monday morning. I was in a forest very early in the morning. It was like 5 o'clock in the morning. It was pitch black. And I had these thoughts of fear. I mean, it's ridiculous, because I've been in that forest so many times. There are no ghosts in the forest. There are no criminals in the forest. I mean, the thought was completely irrational. Now, with thinking, then, this is the challenge, right? Because we get such thoughts that there was this moment of fear, like something is going to jump on me, which are completely irrational. But what's happening is that we need a raw material of some sort to create thoughts, right? Thoughts that don't just come from nowhere. I mean, they have a root somewhere in the psyche. And so there's a raw material from which the thoughts are created. So the raw material would be maybe my memories, my experiences, would be the impression of the society I'm in, the culture that surrounds me, maybe the religion that I participate in, right? All of those impressions are embedded in the psyche, and those impressions then are the raw material from which thoughts are created. So maybe sometime in the past I used to see horror movies when I was younger. And so in horror movies, right, people might be in a forest and there's like a ghost that appears, or a vampire or something or other appears in this dark, dangerous place. So simply what was happening was that a random thought popped into my mind, created from this raw material of those impressions of fear, maybe from the horror movies, or who knows, maybe something from a past life. And it created this thought which is completely unrealistic, unneeded, unnecessary. And so I was able to dismiss it and continue walking in the forest and enjoy the darkness. The darkness has so much value. It's so beautiful to be in the night. So then this is one important aspect of Vivek, of discernment about thought, that thoughts are representations. They're not necessarily factual. The second aspect of how to deal with thought through discernment, Viveka, is, I gave the example just now, but there's the initial thought and there's the second thought, right? So the initial thought is going to pop into one's mind and one's going to observe it. So let's take this example of the night forest. So I'm thinking, oh my God, something was going to jump on me. Something will attack me. That's the first thought. Now, the second thought could be, like I read the other day that in a forest somewhere else in America, somebody was attacked. Or the second thought could be, I've got so much to lose. I mean, I can't afford, to have any problem here. I mean, I'm so far from the road and from civilization. If something happens to me, nobody's going to know. I'm going to lie here like wounded. Nobody's going to. So the thought then takes on a life of its own. What's important to do is to not get into the second thought or the third thought or the fourth thought, but to cut the first thought off immediately, to dismiss it as, or to just let it go, because it's something that's not relevant for one's life. A third way that one can use viveka, this discernment, when dealing with thoughts, is to understand that I am greater than my thoughts. I mean, clearly, because thoughts are coming and going all the time, I'm not thoughts. I'm something more than thoughts. And the way one can do this, for example, is let's say I'm talking to you now, and I've got no idea. Excuse me. I've got no idea what I'm going to say next, and I'm losing control. And I'm getting all nervous and flustered, and so I have the thought, "Oh my God, I'm losing control." And most likely, that's going to exaggerate itself, and I'm going to like really get panicky, as opposed to having the thought that, well, I'm having the thought that I'm losing control. So when I say I'm having the thought that I'm losing control, I'm seeing the thought from a bigger perspective. Let's say I'm worrying about something. I'm worrying about a meeting I have to facilitate. So I'm worrying about the meeting. That means I'm possessed now by the worry, as opposed to I'm having the thought about worrying about the meeting. So then this is really important, right? Is to put thought into a bigger perspective. So the bigger perspective is that which is permanent, if you will. My consciousness, my awareness is the same across time. It's something great and it's something permanent. And within that, there's a thought of maybe inadequacy, or maybe there's a thought of something beautiful. But that thought is simply passing through the greater field of awareness. When one meditates or does spiritual practice in general, one is identifying more with that field of consciousness, less with individual thoughts. So the individual thoughts can be put in their rightful perspective. This is just a passing vibration that's putting a ripple onto the surface of my field of consciousness. And then the fourth aspect of thought, like using discernment, using viveka, right? Because we're in this part of the mind now where we're fine-tuning our capacity to understand reality. And I mentioned it before, to really understand that thoughts are representations. They're not the reality itself. Now, let's give an example. Yesterday, I have a garden here, and we have a lilac bush, and the lilac bush is making an incredibly beautiful aroma. So I meditated beside it yesterday just to experience the aroma. And I was trying to be the aroma, right? The aroma is an expression of cosmic consciousness, as am I. And I was simply in the experience of the sweetness of the universe through that delightful aroma. So this is phenomenological. It's being in direct experience and not thinking. When we think about the experience, it's now a representation. It's not the experience itself. So in a way, everything we're doing right now, like I'm talking to you and you're listening to me, it's all representation, right? I mean, I'm simply representation, a philosophical concept of Tantra, which is Vivek, this ability of the mind to be discerning. All of this is a representation. It has no value unless we actually experience it. When we experience it, then it truly has meaning and we have ownership of it. sometimes when I'm walking, every Monday, I've told you, I do this long hike. So sometimes I'm having an experience and I'm in the experience and it's so beautiful, just observing a tree or hugging a tree. And I'm thinking about how I'm going to tell that to my friends, right? So then, I'm making a memory and I'm thinking how I'm going to share the memory with others. So now I'm out of the experience and I'm using thought in order to figure out how I'm going to convey that experience to others. Or we're on vacation somewhere, beautiful on the beach, and we're thinking what we're going to tell our friends when we get home about the experience we're having. So we're allowing thought, right, which is verbal, could be verbal mentally or verbal using the vocal cords. We're allowing thought to take over, to possess, to disturb the direct experience of just being with what's happening. So the more that we can be in experience and not have to be thinking about the experience, the more we can let our thoughts understand that, hey, we understand thoughts, that you are simply a representation of reality. Now, I want to experience reality directly. So I'm going to suspend thinking while I'm swimming in the ocean, while I'm, enjoying this beautiful moon that we have right now. We have a super moon right now. Just be with it. It doesn't need to be explained. So this then is a way to minimize the value that we give to thinking by understanding thoughts are representations. Let me be with reality directly. All right. I'm intrigued by thoughts, actually, and what we can do with them and how we can better understand them, how we can better utilize them in life and not be hijacked by them. Because I don't know about you, but my mind is often hijacked by my thoughts, and I have to go, whoa, like, hold on a minute. Let's cut this train of thought right now and get into something that's more meaningful, like maybe chanting. All right, so let's get into the spiritual practice. Okay, let's see. I'm going to put up the word to the chant. I never know who's here for the first time and who isn't. So Bhavanam Kevalam. The nice thing about chanting is it involves a number of senses. Sense of hearing, the sense of sound, expression of the vocal cords, even maybe the touch of the vibration on one's being. And so it's a really nice way to just be in experience, to dissolve the mind in what is happening. Bhavanam Kevalam. Kevalam is the consciousness that is permanent, the eternal consciousness, if you will. Baba is the sweetness that we find inside when we are seeking that consciousness. All right, here we go. Baba Namo Keva La Kevalam Baba Na Baba Namo Keva La Kevalam Baba Na Baba Nam Kevalam Baba Nam Kevalam Kevalam Baba Namo Kevalam, Kevalam O Baba Nam, Baba Namo Kevalam, Kevalam O Baba Nam, Baba Nam, Kevalam, Baba Nam, Kevalam, Kevalam, Baba Namo Kevalam, Kevalam O Baba Nam, Baba Namo Kevalam, Kevalam O Baba Nam, Baba Nam, Kevalam, Baba Nam, Kevalam, Kevalam, Baba Namo Kevalam, Kevalam O Baba Nam, Baba Namo Kevalam, Kevalam O Baba Nam, Baba Nam, Kevalam, Baba Nam, Kevalam, Kevalam, Baba Namo Kevalam, Kevalam O Baba Nam, Baba Namo Kevalam, Kevalam O Baba Nam, Baba Nam, Kevalam, Baba Nam, Kevalam, Kevalam, Baba Namo Kevalam, Kevalam O Baba Nam, Baba Namo Kevalam, Kevalam O Baba Nam, Baba Nam, Kevalam, Baba Nam, Kevalam, Kevalam, Baba Namo Kevalam, Kevalam O Baba Nam, Baba Namo Kevalam, Kevalam O Baba Nam, Baba Nam, Kevalam, Baba Nam, Kevalam, Kevalam, Baba Namo Kevalam, Kevalam O Baba Nam, Baba Namo Kevalam, Kevalam O Baba Nam, Baba Nam, Kevalam, Baba Nam, Kevalam, Kevalam, Baba Namo Kevalam, Kevalam O Baba Nam, Baba Namo Kevalam, Kevalam O Baba Nam, Baba Nam, Kevalam, Baba Nam, Kevalam, Kevalam, Baba Namo Kevalam, Kevalam O Baba Nam, Baba Namo Kevalam, Kevalam O Baba Nam, Baba Nam, Kevalam, Let us meditate. Find your seated meditation position. Let the closed eyes signal to the brain that this is an introspective practice, seeking that which is permanent in a world that's ever changing. Be aware of your breath. Be aware that you are experiencing your breath. Right now, you and your breath are meeting in meditation. Thinking about the breath is unnecessary. Experiencing the breath is important. As if you touch the breath with your awareness and the breath touches you in its rhythm. Just experience breath. Let's open the field of awareness. So we are now aware of our field of awareness. Thoughts may well enter this field of awareness. But just let the thought be. There's no need to let a first thought create a second or a third or a fourth thought. Just hold awareness of your field of awareness, your mind, if you will. There's a part of you that's aware that you are aware of awareness. The deepest presence, the deepest witness. Some might say soul. Imagine now you can turn all of yourself towards that deep soul. The part of yourself within that never changes. You are always you at 5 years old or 55. Let your entire awareness turn upon itself, observing its deeper self, soul. Imagine you are moving closer and closer to soul. And like sugar in hot water, imagine all of what you are is dissolved into that soul space, that illuminated consciousness. On the inhalations, if you wish, feel soul. On the exhalations, feel soul as unlimited, cosmic, universal, one with everything. Inhalation as awareness, exhalation as dissolution, dissolving into the one. You could use Baba Nam on the inhalation, the sweetness of awareness, pure awareness. On the exhalation, Kevalam, losing oneself in the infinite. Or your own mantra. As we now meditate together in silence. Imagine you are seated in your soul space, looking out at your day-to-day life. You're seated in the place that doesn't change, looking out at the world that does change. You might notice people and places in your life and actions you have to take. And feel how this deeper, permanent self would guide the part of you that's interacting with day-to-day life. This is Vivek. This is discernment. Allowing the changing life to be guided by the deeper eternal presence within. Feel this continuum of everything you are, from the unchanging core to the changing periphery. And where guidance from the core can support decisions at the periphery. Become aware of the room you are sitting in, as your day-to-day existence now fills more of your mind. But even as you become ready to re-engage in daily life, still feel the deep guidance and love of your soul, your unchanging consciousness, deep, deep within. And when ready, please open up your eyes. Well, at this point, I often ask if there are any questions or comments normally there aren't so many, but here it's sort of ironic because whatever we talk about now is a representation of what we experienced. What we experienced cannot be conveyed in words. And so, but nevertheless, there is some value, obviously, in sharing representations of experiences. So if there is anything anybody wishes to put into the chat, feel free. I'm feeling kind of blissed out actually by that, in that it's so beautiful to go to that place we call the soul. Yeah, here, the sugar in hot water analogy. Exactly. Sometimes, the difference is made between mixing sugar and sand. They're together, but they're not really together, if you will. But sugar in water, that's where there's the true dissolution. That the identity of the sugar is now within the water, and the water is sweetened by the sugar. So those two have become one. And it shows also that verbal representations are very challenging, right? I mean, it's hard to explain something. It's hard to explain a sunrise or a sunset. Well, it's impossible. It has to be experienced, or maybe you can show a photograph of it. So the image will be more powerful than the words. And I think when it comes to spirituality, sometimes these metaphors, if you will, are better than words. Words are often imperfect representations of a deeper truth. That's why the Sanskrit language, or even Hebrew or Latin, some of these languages, they do a better job of representing deeper truths, given that people have experienced those deeper truths, perhaps, who framed the language. So this is Vivek. It's this discernment. It's not easy because actually, for it to be effective in regular life, we have to let the soul speak, the soul guide, the deeper consciousness be present when we are engaging in our lives. That's why it's one of the so-called higher koshas, because it develops after a lot of spiritual practice. All right. Well, it's been wonderful to be here with you today to meditate together and experience deeper aspects of our commonality as human beings, to be the sugar merging into hot water. So I wish everybody well. Have a great week, and enjoy your lives in all dimensions. Namaskar.